All right, we'll call this special planning commission meeting to order. All meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes. So the citizenry may be aware of the time and place and the agenda of this meeting. We'll have a roll call.
Shani Appleby.
Here.
Bob Annabus.
Here.
Steve Ebert.
Here.
Mayor Mike Kemp.
Here.
We do not have Bruce Brunner. That's the only one, right?
Tom Fitzpatrick.
Oh, and Tom Fitzpatrick.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we have a public hearing regarding the proposed project plan, boundaries, and the creation of a tax increment district for number 6.
You want a motion to
We
open?
need a
Open
motion
hearing.
then, we need a motion to have the public hearing for that.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Motion and a second to open the public hearing regarding that boundaries and creations of the tax increments district for number 6. Any questions or comments at this time?
I'll get John Cameron from Ellers on the phone. You can leave the hearing open, probably to the end of this meeting. John will run through the project plan, probably much the same way he did at the joint review board. Yeah, you can hand out copies of this. This is the update. I think we have 8 paper copies.
Did you want one or you?
No, I'm good. I got it electronic. Thanks.
Did you want one or you?
I think so. Where's that?
Put him here.
Hi, John. Patrick calling. How are you doing? Good. See, we're in the open session. They just took a motion to open the public hearing, and then we're going to hook up with you and turn it over to you for a review of the project plan, if that's okay? All right. Let me put you on speakerphone real quick. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
And can everybody hear him?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, John.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is John Cameron. I'm with Ellers. And what I'd like to do this evening is just to briefly walk through the project plan and then happy to answer any questions that come about here. So just to start off with some overall comments, what we're considering this evening is the creation of TID number 6 that would be created as an industrial district. In terms of total project expenditures, what we have built into the project plan is a listing of project expenditures that total just under $8 million. However, at this time, it's anticipated that the TID would actually be able to support approximately $1.4 million in project costs. And that's a change from kind of the first version that the Joint Review Board reviewed prior to Thanksgiving. And really, the primary change is with the assumptions for development. And that was based on recent conversations with AgriPure as well as with the State Economic Development Council that really looks at taking a more conservative approach for the value of the first phase of their development, as well as a more conservative approach as to when and the value for future phases of development on the AgriPure site. But with that being said, with those changes, the TID would be able to support approximately $1.4 million of cost and be able to close out and pay for those costs with that tax increment that would come in with the increase to development by the year 2033. And that would be 2 years earlier than the 20-year maximum life of the district. So if you're to create the district, it would have a maximum lifespan of 20 years. And that date starts really from when the Common Council would adopt a resolution creating the TID. So just to kind of hit on some of the high points of the plan, if you go to, if you have the plan in front of you, if you go to page 7, what that shows, 7 and 8, both have maps that show the location of the TID, as well as on page 8 that shows just the existing use that is currently zoned and being used as an industrial site. Page 9 of the plan shows you the base property information for the site. Currently, the site has a estimated base value, equalized value of $5.6 million. So that's land and improvements. Okay. If you look at the following page, page number 10, what this is showing you within the project plan is the valuation test compliance calculation. And what the statute says is that it requires, and this is statewide statute that requires equalized value of taxable property in the district plus the value increment of all existing tax increment districts cannot exceed 12% of the total equalized value within the city. So what this shows is total equalized value TID as of 1/1/14 would be $88.3 million. 12% of that would be $10.6 million. If you look at the increment of TID 3, 4, and 5, which are your existing open TIDs, plus the increment of the projected base value of the acre pier site, you're just over that. You're at about just under $11.5 million. So in order to get under that threshold, what's being proposed is to close out TID number 3, which really has only a couple of years of remaining life on it, and close statutorily in 2018. And that would get you under the 12% test and get you to pass with some cushion available as well. If you jump then to page 17, what page 17 shows is the estimated project list. And the list itself is really kind of broken into two components. Projects that are funded, estimated to be funded with available TID revenues that we show in the project plan. And then below that would be additional project costs that would be available for TID funding if additional tax increment is recognized. So, if the acre pier site would, with their first new set of expansion would come in at a higher value than what we show in the project plan here, you have the ability to take on some additional project costs. Also, if future phases would happen at a quicker pace or at a larger pace in terms of the taxable value, that would certainly also give the city the ability to take on additional projects with tax increment revenues. So as you look at this page, the top part of the page, the first project, which is really the largest project that's being shown within the project plan, and that's the upgrades to the wastewater treatment facility. What we're showing in the project plan is if you look at projects, this project is listed twice in this sheet. The top part of the sheet shows about $770,000 that would be available to be funded with available TID revenues. The bottom part would be an additional $3.8 million out of a total cost of $5.5 million. That if, again, TID increment comes in at a higher value than what we anticipate, or future developments happen at a faster pace or at a higher value than we anticipate, the TID could certainly take on additional costs. And the reason why it's not 100% eligible is because you have an industrial service agreement that's with AgriPure for part of the project cost. There are also some other estimated costs that would be non-TIP eligible within that plan, but by and large, most of it would be TIP eligible. And that really, is the highest in terms of priority projects within the TID. The wastewater treatment plant project really is kind of the highest priority project on the list, because without it, you really don't have the ability for AgriPure to make that expansion. You need that upgrade within the wastewater treatment plant in order for this to occur. There are also some other roadway improvements, sanitary sewer upgrades on 3rd Street and Mill Street, some more minor roadway improvements on Minton Avenue, and then the creation and administration expense. Below that initial line, you have some other costs, and certainly the wastewater treatment plant would be additional costs that could be undertaken if additional increment is recognized. And then there are some other expenses that would be potentially phased out into future years. You can see kind of working your way across the page. We broke the project costs down into 3 different phases based on timing, and a lot of them kind of get pushed out into really that what we have identified as a 3rd phase. And these are project costs that may not happen if AgriPure doesn't make future expansions, or they're not made at a larger scale. For instance, a new well would be one that may, is my understanding, that may not happen unless there's a pretty substantial upgrade in the future on the AgriPure site.
That's correct.
As well as some other upgrades as well. Replacement of elevated storage tank would be another one that may not need to happen as well. So that's the estimated project list. It is an estimate at this point. One other important thing to note is that if this would get passed along to the Common Council for consideration, the adoption of the TID project plan does not commit the city to spending these dollars or undertaking any of these projects. Those will still be voted on and undertaken in separate phases. What this is putting the TID in place to allow the city to have that mechanism to recover dollars through the tax incremental finance district and pay for eligible project costs. So if you jump ahead to page 20, what page 20 shows you is the estimated financing plan for the eligible, or for the costs that are anticipated to be financed with available tax increment dollars. So it adds up to just under that $1.4 million, 1.383. And we're anticipating that both phase with projects would happen in 2015, but they would actually occur in 2 separate financings, and that's really because the wastewater treatment plant will ultimately be financed with a Clean Water Fund loan, which is a state subsidized loan process for sanitary sewer projects. The other project costs would be done through a general obligation promissory note. So if you look at the next page, which is page 21, what that shows is the anticipated development assumptions. And in terms of development assumptions, what we're talking about here is the amount of taxable value that we can realistically count on within the TID. So, certainly know that the first phase of development on the AgriPure site that's being discussed for 2015 is more on the scale of $55 million, but not all of that is going to be taxable when that ultimately gets valued by the state. Any sort of equipment that wouldn't be taxable certainly comes off of that, and that's certainly part of that $55 million upgrade, but it's not taxable. And then with industrial property, certainly if you're talking about 40, 50 cents on the dollar, that's really what we're talking about in terms of the amount of value that would be ultimately placed on the tax roll. And then what we're showing is another $2.5 million worth of development coming in 2018, so a total of $5 million. and that $5 million of taxable value, that increment that's going to come in, that is enough to support that $1.4 million in project costs. So if you look at the next page, what this shows you is the amount of projected tax increment revenue that would be coming in based off of that $5 million. And over time, over a 20-year time period, that future value would total $2.29 million. Now, if you just flip to the following page, the sold-out page that shows you the cash flow projection for the bid. On the far left-hand side of the page in green are the projected revenues. The middle section of the page is the expenditures, and the expenditures of the repayment of the bond anticipation note that would ultimately turn into that clean water fund loan, and then the general obligation promissory note. And then the far side would be the balance. Now, the real key to this, so you can see just following from left to right, is revenues come in initially from bond revenues, and then we have on the right-hand side of the page, the construction expenses going out. And then over time, tax increment coming in from the initial $2.5 million and then the following $2.5 million that would take place in 2018, going to then pay off the principal and interest payments on the two debt issuances. So the key to this page is really the far right-hand side of it that shows you the balances. And really, it's the cumulative balance that is kind of the key column. Number one, from a projection standpoint, we certainly don't want to show that going negative. We want to always show that the TID has a positive cash balance. And then really the point at which the TID can close is the point where the cumulative balance exceeds the principal outstanding on the two debt issuances, and that's in 2033. So from a presentation standpoint, that's really the high point that I plan on covering tonight. Are there any questions on what I went through? Well, kind of quickly.
Sounds like you covered it pretty good, John.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or anything? Again, like I said earlier, any action on the resolution, or it's just a recommendation, and it would go to the January City Council meeting. And if we don't have anything else for John, we could probably let him go.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Well, thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity this evening, and then we can touch base tomorrow on the adoption of the resolution.
That sounds great. Sounds great. Thank you, John.
Okay.
All right. Have a good
Yeah,
evening.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye. So again, you do have the public hearing open. Once public comment is complete, you would need a motion to close the public hearing and then a motion on resolution, is it 559?
Any questions or comments? I guess I would look for a motion then to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to close the public hearing regarding the proposed project plan, boundary creation for a tax increment district for number 6. Any other questions or comments on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Then I would ask that we have a motion and a second for consideration of resolution number 559, resolution designating proposed boundaries and approving the project plan for the tax increment district number 6 in the city of Weyauwega, Wisconsin.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Any questions or comments on the resolution? We'll have a roll call for that.
Hebert,
Aye.
Annabus,
Aye.
Appleby,
Aye.
Kemp,
Aye. Okay,
carried with 4 ayes.
all right. Let's see. We have nothing else then for this planning commission?
Nope.
All right, then I ask for a motion to adjourn from this planning commission meeting.
I'll make a motion to close planning commission meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried.